Hey, good morning. Welcome to day one. You know, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, curious, skeptical, hopeful, wounded, confident, I'm so glad that you're here. This devotional over the next 40 days is for you. And, you may be happy to know that over the 60 years, almost 60 years that I've been living life, I've actually found myself in all of those categories. So this is a safe place. Now, regardless of what you think about Jesus and the Bible, I think we can all agree on this. We live in a beautiful yet broken world. And we'd also all likely agree that you can't turn on the television today or scroll through social media without someone assaulting your senses, seeking to persuade you to hate in the way that they hate. Today, it seems like the most common form of community is finding like common grievance. I want you to think about that. And my hope and prayer is for this community to be completely different. So let's honor the fact that there's some different people from different denominational backgrounds. And then there's others that come from no religious upbringing at all. So in other words, this is not intended to be a theological debate forum. It's not Facebook, where you can convince somebody that they're hopelessly wrong. Comments are encouraged. And in fact, even disagreement's okay, as long as we aren't disagreeable. Okay? And I think you guys know what I mean. All right? And if there's a concept or something I'm talking about, or maybe there's just something deeply personal that you don't feel as comfortable putting out onto the GroupMe forum, you can private message me. I'm happy to discuss any of these ideas. I'm also happy to pray for you. Again, as the group grows, if you feel comfortable in sharing a prayer request or sharing anything, let me encourage you to do that, all right? But let's make sure that we're being respectful of one another. The second thing is this. I don't care where you come from on the political spectrum, right? This group is not intended to drive any of that, okay? Let's not read the scriptures through a political lens. Instead, let's allow the scriptures to speak about certain themes or movements, which we will cover over the next 40 days. So for example, the first week, this first roughly 7 days, we are going to focus on this idea of identity and purpose. Why did God create you? Where do you fit into a world which at times, if we are honest, seems completely chaotic and random? Maybe even wonder if human life ever even has a true purpose. And I'll try to lead in a way that is genuine and authentic, with the scriptures leading the way. And to that end, one of the reasons that for me, identity and purpose are the first foundation that I want to build this house on, it's really because in my own personal story, it is central to my spiritual formation. I'm going to share this with you. It's personal, and it's meant to remain respectful to my beautiful father and my mother, who's deceased since I was 17. I distinctly remember sitting in a psych class in college, and to this day, it's still so impactful. And the professor was explaining how the world viewed me. That's really what he was doing. We reviewed a case study about a young man whose life was the result of an unplanned pregnancy. He grew up in a single-parent household on financial assistance from the government most of his young life, with substance abuse in the home. And this not only captured my attention because it was describing my upbringing, it angered me because of the statistical probabilities that followed. The study concluded that such young men would likely have very low self-esteem. They'd struggle finding meaningful, trusting relationships. Some would likely become substance abusers themselves, and it would even be common for that young man to have frequent suicidal thoughts. And this infuriated me to the point where after class I argued with the professor, who kind of like listened to me in this like patronizing attitude, like, oh, that's good for you, but kind of like you're not really in touch with your true issues. That's kind of how I felt. And for days, this remained bothering me. And partly because my mom had recently died the year before, and it kind of came across as demeaning and disrespectful to her, where I had such a deep appreciation for my mom and how she lived her life sacrificially for my sister and I. And I also love my dad, who is the person throughout my life who's challenged me and pointed me to seek after a righteousness that he himself did not possess. But that Jesus was the most important relationship I could ever pursue. And you see, I got that from my dad more than anybody. And honestly, I like my life. I look back to my upbringing with fondness. And I admire both my mom and dad, who were in high school when they had the courage to see my conception through to birth. Took a lot of courage, I'm sure. But here's the thing, as the days passed, even those explanations, they weren't enough. I was so deeply bothered by this case study that something amazing finally happened. And you see, back then, I was not like a Bible student by any means, but from time to time, I'd simply kind of like flip open the Bible, like kind of like Bible roulette. And like whatever chapter it lands on, that's what I'd read for the day. That was my chapter for the day. And that's not saying that that's the best way to, to do your devotions, but that's how I kind of did it when I did it. But because I was so troubled about this, I kind of got back into that. And this is what's so neat. A couple of days after, in the midst of this inner conflict, I flip open the Bible, and by chance, it lands on Psalm 139, and I'd encourage you to read that chapter if you're trying to take on this idea of what do the scriptures say about God's purpose and intention for my life. And I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but let me read some excerpts from Psalm 139. It's a psalm that David penned over 2,000 years ago, and he writes, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. You saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. When I count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you." You see, in that moment, my Heavenly Father spoke directly to me, his son, through the words David penned 2,000 years ago. And what's amazing is, if that wasn't enough, the next day I flip open to Jeremiah chapter 1. And you know what verse 5 says? It says this: "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." And I began to weep as I heard God's answer in the spiritual realm. It's the closest thing to God speaking audibly to me, right? And you see, it's not because, this is what I realized, it's not because I'm a strong and positive person. It's not because I summoned some inner strength to overcome these statistical realities. And it's not because my dad and my mom didn't run away. And it was none of those things. It wasn't about them, and it wasn't even about me for sure. For me, it was simply this. This is simply this. Listen, I believed what the scriptures wrote about God, and I believed what the scriptures said God thinks about me. See, that's why I wasn't included in one of those statistics. See, I don't just believe it's because my dad reminds me all the time that he loves me, which he does, and I just believe it's because God told me that he planned me and that he loved me before the foundations of the earth, and that he made me intentionally in love, by love, and for love. See, that I am not a mistake, regardless of how the world might categorize that. You see, this is what I mean by the power of introducing ourselves to the scriptures and contemplating, what if that's really true? Right? See, because there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that has the everlasting power of when Creator God tells you, I love you. I made you on purpose, for a purpose. I want you to think about that today. So this first week, we're going to talk about identity. See, before rule-following behavior. Identity before performance. Before religion. It begins with this question. What if it's actually true? What if Psalm 139 and Jeremiah 5 actually describe your reality? How might that impact the way you view God? How might it impact the way you view yourself as you struggle with shame and all of these other things that we all struggle with? Esteem issues, seeing ourselves rightly. And how might it impact, listen, how might it impact the way you view your neighbor? Ooh, here we go. See, my prayer is over these next several days as we build this foundation of identity and purpose, that you begin to see yourself, others, through the lens of God's intentional love. Have a great day, everybody. Glad you're aboard.